All right, so I think as you guys can already see, it's a little bit different than usual. Like I stated previously on day 19, I'm gonna be showing off the gear that I'm using to capture the photos, record the videos, all that shit. Right now, I'm currently using my phone. It's a little bit of a weird setup, but I think we should be good. As far as with the audio, I think we also should be good. Anyways, so I don't know if you guys can see. I know there's a little bit of portions. I think you can see maybe up to right here. So we're gonna start off with the main guy. The camera that I'm using to capture the photos, to record the videos, is the Sony a6400. As far as to what I've seen, many people say that this is by far one of the best. Well, at the time that I was invested or I was interested in photography, which was roughly last year, roughly between the summer of 2023. This one, for the price, the features, the image quality you can get from this camera, it's kind of the best bang for your buck. As far as with video, yeah, I would say it's okay, but I think you guys can, if you guys been really kind of focusing, you can see I don't know what they call it. I think it's a breathing effect that this camera has. I thought it was the lenses, but it's just the camera itself. It doesn't matter what lenses you have. So unfortunate, but really I had no issues. I've been enjoying this camera. It's kind of light as well, but of course with the different lenses that I have, it kind of makes it a little bit heavy. But overall, just the way how it is, and just with the normal lenses that I use, it's a overall great camera. As far as right now, I don't plan on upgrading, but there was a time period that I was, just because the new A6700 came out just at that time period. But I just decided, not to waste more money with this already expensive setup that I have. I just decided to stick with it and work with what I got. So that's the main guy here, the A6400. Now, as for the first lens that I got to pair with the A6400, it is the Sigma 30mm f1.4. As far as for money, size, image quality, I think this is by far one of the best lenses that you can buy. I think it was roughly 300 bucks. Again, f1.4. I think you guys can imagine how much is the price for roughly a 50 millimeter f1.4 directly from Sony. That's roughly closing in at right about maybe $1,200 to $3,000 to 13. No, I'm sorry, $1,300. So for 300, this is quite the lens. This lens, as far as the photos that I've captured and even some that I've edited, this lens is responsible for roughly, oh man, I would say roughly about 90 to 95% of all the images I have in my memory cards, which I just recently checked, is closing in at around roughly 1,400 pictures. This guy has been responsible for mostly all of them. Again, the other lenses have, done their thing, but this guy, as far as with the A64 and the Sigma lens, a great pair. It was mostly because I just was seeing some guys using it, and they said, for as far as with, you know, not a budget wise setup, but just to start off, Sigma lens with the A6400, a great pair, right? So that kind of finishes off the Sigma 30mm. The next telephoto lens I got, I wouldn't say I went all out with this one, but at the same time I did. It's the Sigma 100 to 400 millimeter. I think it's f4 to 5.6 or 5 to 5.6. I'm not sure. It's the Sigma 100 to 400 millimeter. As far as for this lens, there has been a couple of photos that I've edited with, especially the guy with, I can't remember what day it was. The guy that I shot on the from the window that I was complaining and bitching about the reflections. It was with this lens. Now, I think this was roughly around 700, maybe $700 when I bought it. For the price and for the image quality that comes out of it, I think it's fairly a good lens, although it does have its little quirks, or it's maybe just might be me, because I have been more recently just probably just kind of convincing myself to get the 70 to 200 millimeter f2.8 from Sigma, the one that they also sell, which that's roughly about $1,200, $1,300. But I decided, you know what, I've already got a lens that basically does the same thing. There's no need to waste more money on it. As far as for right now, then maybe hopefully with more time, more practice, and more income, maybe I'll decide on making the purchase. But as far as with the photos and the image quality I've been getting out from this lens, I'd say it's fairly good. But this was also the lens that I was complaining about. I think it was last video that I was trying to I was trying to capture the bird on the power line, and then it came out all blurry. It was with this lens. Granted, you pair this lens, which on camera I don't think you guys can see it, but in person this is roughly around close to 3 pounds maybe. You pair this with a tiny camera and you get a very interesting combo. It's questionable, but I'd say it gets the job done, so can't complain there. Before and first, this was just gonna be my one and only lens that I was gonna take. And then this would have been considered my prime lens since it's a 30 millimeter. But then I had maybe some second guesses. I was very much analyzing and thinking about that analysis. So then after some time, I decided to go out and purchase the Sigma 18 to 50 millimeter f2.8, as by far as versatile as far as with true wide angle, and then maybe even some portraits, although I haven't shot really at any portraits at all right now. This lens, and for its size and again for its price, which is roughly around maybe 400, 500, I'm not sure, but for the size, again, pairing it with the A6400, I think it's pretty good. As far as with photos, believe it or not, I haven't shot many photos with this lens, although I have in a way, but not as much as these other two, right? This one is kind of newcomer. I bought this roughly, when was this? Maybe around 2 to 3 months ago, so it doesn't have much time with me. But it's still a really good lens as far as the times that I have been using it. And believe it or not, this was the lens that I used to record the first video of this journey back in day one. This was the lens that I used. Ever since day 2 and moving forward, it's been with this one, mostly because more looking at it, I didn't like how my desk was on, I guess, on frame. And I just wanted to kind of prioritize myself, which I guess I could just zoom in, but I kind of like the 30 millimeter just for the fact that it's on one focal length and I just only have to adjust the stand or my tripod ever so slightly, which brings me to the tripod, the one that I used in roughly all of my videos to hold up the camera is as far as with pronouncing, I'm not too good. I think it's the Ulanzi. I'm trying to remember what this tripod was called. The Ulanzi F38 quick release system. I think that's what it was. It's carbon fiber. When I was looking onto the tripods, and when I was, looking for the tripod that I was gonna purchase, I was almost hooked on the Peak design, believe it or not. But the Peak design and looking after some reviews, comparisons, yeah, maybe it may have been better, but the only reason why I really got this tripod is because one, it does the job very good. I took this tripod to Mexico and I shot some nighttime photography. So I can't recall if it's been nighttime photographies that I've edited on this journey. However, if you were to go back to the beginning stages of my Instagram, especially I think the same day I created, I think it was actually my first photo, it was shot with this tripod. And again, I mostly got this tripod for the price because 600 compared to 300, I mean, it's over half the price and it does the same thing. And mostly it's carbon fiber, so it's lightweight. So it's not holding it's not too much of a hassle for me as far as carrying it with me, especially in the airport. But that's the case. Now, as far as with the microphone system, I think you guys already can have an image, but where is this? Okay. It is the Rode Wireless Pro. Again, I was in the balance either between purchasing this one or at the time the DJI wireless mic, the first version. I ended up with Rode, even though it was a little bit more expensive, roughly around $400. I still decided to go with with Rode, just on the fact that at the time it had 32-bit audio float, something like that, 32-bit float rate. I think that's what it was. But I'm not no audio technician guy. I'm not entirely sure what that was, but basically for me, I could hear a very noticeable difference as far as with Rode and DJI, that the Rode just sounded a little bit more clear and balanced in a way than the DJI. The DJI sounded a little bit more muffled. It's a very good wireless setup, or a wireless microphone setup. Again, a little bit pricey, but I think if you have the budget, I think it can work out. Now, as far as with the only two videos that, if you remember, the first portions of it was shot with this. This is the DJI Osmo Action 4. Somewhat of an action camera. Again, at the time that I was looking for an action camera, it was mostly because at that time period, I was really interested in POV shots. And there was even a time period that I was gonna dedicate this journey as far as POV and then editing. Although as I was preparing this video today, I had that idea again. Maybe, who knows, that might be something I might test out, experiment on one day. Even though I haven't utilized this action camera much as far as for my videos, especially when I was in my time in Mexico, I did utilize this camera probably more even than my Sony camera, because just on small, compact, and good image quality it was coming out, especially for video. I wouldn't say it was a waste of money, but I could definitely utilize it more. And maybe, as I'm explaining it, maybe that might be something that I'll test out. Maybe actually sooner rather than later, believe it or not. Now, as far as with the lenses, with the 30mm and with the 100 to 400mm, I did went out and bought their own filters. These are Hoya circular polarizer UV filters. I mostly bought these filters because it would do a somewhat okay job as far as removing reflections. But I think for those that watched that video on the one that I stated earlier of the guy in front of the window, I think it wouldn't be a bad idea to maybe go out and probably spend more money, because I think for both of them were roughly what, maybe $50 in total, combining them both. These are the only two filters I have. They still do a pretty good job as far as with removing reflections, whatever the case may be. But maybe soon I'll probably go out and probably buy more filters. Now, you may wonder, how am I connecting my camera to or how am I connecting my wireless transmitter or receiver onto the camera? Because I know my Sony has, I think, a hot shoe or a cold shoe mount right here, but I actually tested it and it doesn't quite work. So what I ended up doing, and this also goes this as far as also with the DJI action camera, I went out and bought them small rig cases This one in particular has two of them, although I don't really use one. I mostly just only use one just so my receiver for my wireless microphone can actually have somewhere to be on the camera, and instead of it being dangling out onto the side. Same thing goes for the DJI mic. I think in all, I don't think these were as expensive as the other gear that I've shown. But as far as with me, how my workflow is, these, especially this one, really does come in handy as far as making these videos. For photos, right now as it stands, it's not really much of a use, but especially with video, as I'm recording these videos, it really does serve me well. Probably as I'm looking at here, the last thing as far as with my gear is the book bag. To be honest, this was just a simple book bag that I got off of Best Buy. What is this? Low Pro? Is that how you say it? Low Pro? Maybe. It's just a camera book bag. This is the bag that I take with me everywhere. As far as, well, if I'm not going out of state or out of the country, this is the bag that I take. It fits roughly all of my equipment as far as the ones that I use. It does a fairly good job of storing all of my gear. So like I said, as far as with small distance traveling, this would be the book bag of my choice. I know in my closet I have more like I wouldn't say a purse, but at the same time, yes, I can't remember what day it was, but not too long ago, on the video that I edited myself, you guys can see it off to the side, because at that time I didn't take this with me to Mexico. I took that pouch instead, and that was the one that's another one that I have, although currently I don't use it as much because this one does a fairly good job at the moment, but is there. Now, as far as with taking my camera gear and all this shit when I went out to Mexico, well, it'd be this guy down here. This is the Peak Design 30-liter everyday backpack. Now, I bought this way before even I started getting into photography. I bought this actually close to 2 years before I decided on investing into photography. I bought it mostly, well, to be honest, I mostly bought it because of this one YouTuber I see, MKBHD. He kind of convinced me on getting it. But as I used it, especially when I took this book bag as far as carrying all my camera gear to Mexico, it did a fairly good job. It did a fairly good job as far as with storage, really no hassles. Maybe there was a few hassles here and there. It was mostly with my tripod off to the side that it created a little bit of an imbalanced weight problem for me. But I sucked it up, I went through it. But if I'm going either out of state or out of the country, this would be the bag that I would use. But again, when I went to Mexico, I only had one camera with one lens. Now that there's been two lenses that are added to the mix, I don't know if this one would probably do or would probably still serve me well, but in the meantime, as I'm recording this, for the times that I've used it, which in all reality it'll only be one, it has served me well. Now, although you guys do see this laptop every day or roughly every video, this is the 2021 14-inch MacBook Pro, the base model, the absolute, I wouldn't say bottom of the bottom, but if you were to go to the Apple store and just ask for the base model, well, again, back in 2021, this is the one that I use. This is really the laptop I use as far as with editing the photos, screen recording it, and then especially editing it. Now, I have stated that even though this is a very good laptop, I wouldn't replace it with anything else. If I could make just one little change, if I can go back and tell myself, make one change, I'd upgrade the storage. And personally, if anyone is interested on getting a MacBook for video editing, I don't know, it may just be me, because again, this is 4K 30 FPS footage. I would increase the storage since it's the base model. It's only 512, which it might sound a lot, but you got to remember 90 gigabytes are already used up as far as with, the apps I have, the any software update there is. That's 90 is already taken out of 512, and even then you don't even get 512. You actually get more like 495, 499. You don't even get the 500 gigabyte. So then as I'm recording this, especially with my Sony camera, I don't know, it may just be a setting I might have to change, but with the Sony camera and then with the screen recording and then the software that I use, which is Final Cut Pro, that storage runs up just as very quickly. It runs up very quickly to the point that I've had several videos kind of delayed because the storage, or mostly the project, which is the video, I guess, that I was recording on Final Cut Pro, actually filled up the storage. So believe it or not, even though this may be roughly a 20 to 30 minute, or back then 40-minute long video, that still filled up my whole MacBook. Roughly 300 gigabytes was filled up just because on that one project I was working on, which would be the videos. I've kind of found a balance now as far as keeping it under or making it not reach to that close to that 500 gigabyte mark, but still, if I could go back, and I would definitely give myself, my younger self, I guess, a tip as far as if I knew that I was going to use this or utilize this MacBook as far as with video editing and maybe even a little bit of photography, I would have told myself to definitely raise up increase your storage capacity, because although it's great, roughly I have no issues, well, except for day one, which I think I explained on day two that I spent roughly a week trying to relearn Final Cut Pro. Except for that time period, Final Cut has done me well. I really enjoy the software, mostly probably because I'm using the MacBook. It runs well. I have no plans on upgrading it just yet. But if I were, it'd probably mostly just be because of the storage. But everything else, as far as with RAM, processing, whatever the case may be, it runs well. Although rendering, when I'm actually exporting the video, it does take up some time. It may even heat up a little bit, just barely, but it still runs very well. It's a very, very good laptop, which is what I'd come to expect considering the fact that this shit was roughly what, oh gosh, well, how much was that? Probably close to 2.5 grand, because I got that, then with taxes, and then I also added an Apple Care. It was roughly 2.5 grand for this laptop. Although I do say, had it not been for this laptop, I don't think I would have been able to work on these videos, whatever the case may be, because just on how well this laptop runs with all the footage that I'm recording trying to make these videos. So I have no complaints, but again, the storage is one thing I would definitely change. And as far as with gear, I'm trying to look around to see if there's anything else. As far as with gear, I think, believe it or not, I think that is actually it. Again, I don't know how long this video is going to be. I'm going to try to keep it short as possible. But in all fairness, that's really it. This may not be the videos that you guys are used to, as far as me sitting down, editing, probably walking you guys through as far as what my thought process is with photos. Like I stated last video, I really wanted to dedicate this video to share with you guys the gear that I use. Although I can definitely see some of you guys saying, I don't even want to know how much the total was in all this. I don't even want to know what the total was. But I guess my takeaway point from this video would be, and I see it so many times as far as, with photography, obviously the guys that are taking the best photos, the whatever the case may be, the best photos, the best video, the ones that you see everywhere, they obviously take it on high-end cameras, but you can get really decent and even at sometimes on par or even better photos and possibly even videos, although with this one is questionable, but with photos you can really take outstanding photos with really any camera. In this case, an $800 camera, you pair it with a $300 lens and you could get some really pretty impressive and pretty astonishing photos just from less than a $1,200 camera setup. So I guess my takeaway from this video as I'm making it is, don't try to go out and spend money on camera bodies, right? Because although the best of the best, the high-end cameras that are coming out every year, although those may look promising, those may look like, oh, it's definitely worth of an upgrade. My advice would be to maybe look into a couple years, because it's like with smartphones nowadays. There's not much changes going on as far as from the last model to the new model. In this case, I didn't know that this camera came out in 2019, which is roughly 4 to 5 years ago. And well, maybe it's because just me lack of knowledge as far as using it, but I've seen creators with this camera and sometimes even with this lens taking pictures that I could never imagine myself taking, and with editing, right? But even though cameras, especially the newest ones that are coming out by these camera companies, invest, if you really are interested in photography, invest in either a budget camera or maybe hell even a camera that was a couple years ago, couple years old. Doesn't have to be 10 years ago. Could be roughly 2 3 years ago, and then you can pair it with a really good lens. Now if you are, my another tip or another advice I would give is, don't worry as far as with the camera. All right, every camera is roughly the same, and if you really do want to get astonishing and out of this world pictures, you would definitely want to invest in proper and maybe even high-end camera lenses, because camera bodies, as far as with the sensors and the features, yeah, sure, it's fine, but where the real magic is with the camera lenses. So even if you were to buy a $5,000 camera body, if you were to pair it with $100 lens, your photos are still going to come out as shit. Why? Because the lenses are really the reason why you're even taking a photo. It's gonna dictate on how the photo is gonna come out, right? So that's really my advice as far as if you're into photography. Again, I'm not sure if you guys are really interested in this type of video. I tried my best and I wanted to do something different because it's 20 days in, and I wanted to, and again, like I've stated, 20 days in, and I haven't shown you guys my camera gear as far as for taking the photos, making the videos, hell, even editing the video slash photo. I just wanted to give you guys a little insight as far as what gear I have currently. And then who knows, maybe this inspired you to kind of rethink your choices if you were going into photography, to kind of rethink your choices as far as, maybe I should not spend a couple $1,000s just on the camera body, right? But that's just my advice, although I should really be following my own advice because I did kind of splurge out, but that's really all what it is. Anyways, it's a weird video. Again, I'm gonna try my best to keep it short, but yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll be seeing you guys hopefully tomorrow on day 21.